A sharp, metallic chime echoed through the sterile halls of the interspecies veterinary clinic as the main entrance hissed open. The receptionist, a thin-limbed praxary with skin like wet marble, blinked all 5 of his eyes at the man who stepped in holding a leash. On the other end of the leash, a wide, panting dog trotted in with his ears perked and tail wagging at an angle just shy of ecstatic. "Name?" the receptionist asked, each syllable vibrating slightly, as if he were speaking through a harmonica wrapped in gauze. "Silas O'Malley." "This here's Murphy," the man said, tugging gently on the leash as the dog tried to nose a potted plant near the waiting chairs. "He's due for his rabies booster and a check on his back leg. He's been limping a bit." Murphy, a massive mutt with the misfortune of resembling a bear more than a retriever, gave a single bark that made a small Avaxi child drop his snack pot in alarm. The receptionist flinched. "Please restrain the creature. He is large. He's just excited." "He only gets aggressive at squirrels," Silas said, offering a small, apologetic shrug as he reeled Murphy in a bit closer with a tug of the leash. A soft buzz sounded and a door slid open to the left. A tall alien emerged, his skin a dusky blue with limbs that moved like they were submerged in syrup. His coat was pearly white with a cluster of silver badges on the collar. He carried a datapad in one hand and a skeptical expression on his elongated face. "I am Dr. Vellet," he said. "You bring the Earth creature for examination?" "Dog," Silas corrected. "His name's Murphy." "And yeah, just routine stuff. I think he tweaked his leg running around the park." Dr. Vellet's gaze dropped to Murphy, who was now sniffing the base of a sanitation unit. The dog looked up, tongue lolling, and let out a small, pleased woof. Vellet took a step back. "This dog is uncontained," he said slowly. "He's on a leash." "He is a savage beast," Vellet said, drawing himself up and tapping his pad with long fingers. "He must be restrained within an inertial field before examination proceeds. I will not risk my staff." Silas blinked. "He only gets aggressive at squirrels." "I swear, he's fine with people." Murphy chose that moment to sneeze violently, spraying a fine mist across the floor. A nearby technician gagged and scuttled backward. "I will prepare an isolation chamber," Vellet said, turning sharply. Silas sighed and followed him down the hallway, Murphy trotting beside him, tail wagging like a metronome stuck on overenthusiastic. The exam room was more of a metal cube with a floating table in the middle. As Silas stepped in, the door sealed behind him with a hiss. Vellet stood behind a transparent barrier already, tapping commands into his pad. "You will place the dog on the examination platform, then step away. You don't have to treat him like a bomb," Silas muttered, lifting Murphy, who weighed as much as a fully grown man, onto the table with a grunt. "There. Sit, Murph." Murphy obediently flopped onto his haunches and wagged his tail, smacking it rhythmically against the metal surface. Vellet activated a scanning light. A soft blue beam passed over Murphy, who sneezed again and licked at the scanner. The beam shorted out with a spark. "Unacceptable," Vellet said, recoiling. "This creature is not compliant." "I told you he's fine if you're not a squirrel." "Explain this squirrel," Vellet said, tapping furiously at his pad. "Small, fluffy-tailed rodents. They chatter and run up trees. Drives Murphy nuts." Vellet stared at him. "Squirrels are a threat to this animal?" "Not really. Just a fixation. He thinks it's his job to chase them. Not sure why." "Primitive prey drive," Vellet muttered. "Dangerous." Murphy let out a groan and sprawled on the table, his back leg twitching slightly. "Look, his leg's been bothering him," Silas said. "Can you check that?" Vellet hesitated, then extended a mechanical arm from the ceiling. It hovered over Murphy's hind leg and emitted a pulse. "Minor ligament strain," he said. "Rest recommended." Murphy yawned. "See? He's not a savage beast," Silas said. "He's a couch dog with a squirrel vendetta." "I must file a report regardless," Vellet replied. "This animal triggered 3 alarms simply by entering." Murphy scratched his ear with his hind leg and farted loudly. Velvet flinched. Appointment is concluded. You may depart. Silas muttered something under his breath and hauled Murphy back off the table. The dog whined slightly but followed him obediently. They were halfway down the hallway when a shriek rang out from the waiting room. Silas burst through the door to find chaos. One of the ceiling vents had come loose and an alien creature small, gray-furred, bushy-tailed scrambled across the floor. A squirrel? Silas said, slack-jawed. Murphy went rigid. No, Murph, sit. But the dog was already gone. A blur of fur and muscle, launching himself after the alien squirrel. It shrieked and darted between chairs, knocking over a tray of nutrient vials. A technician screamed. Murphy lunged, slid across the floor, and crashed through a partition wall with a crash that sent sparks flying. Contain the beast. Velvet's voice rang out over the intercom. I told you. Silas yelled, diving after the leash. It's only squirrels. Murphy had cornered the squirrel behind a sanitation pod, barking his head off. The squirrel chattered back furiously, standing on its hind legs like it was cursing him. Murph! Off! Silas shouted. The dog hesitated, then backed off with a huff, tail still wagging furiously. By the time security arrived, Silas had Murphy back on the leash. The alien squirrel had been corralled into a containment orb and was now hovering in the air, visibly seething. You are banned, Velvet said flatly, appearing with 2 security guards behind him. From this facility. Indefinitely. You let squirrels crawl through your vents. Silas shouted. What did you expect? A savage beast should not be allowed to roam among civilized species. Silas looked at Murphy, who sat back on his haunches, panting happily. Yeah, well, he's vaccinated. Against rage, not squirrels. Velvet turned and stalked off. On the shuttle ride home, Murphy curled up under Silas's seat with a contented sigh. Silas leaned back and rubbed his temples. You couldn't have just let it go, could you? Murphy thumped his tail once and burped softly. Silas stared ahead. You're lucky I didn't get arrested. From the corner, a small green alien whispered to its companion, what kind of creature chases vermin with such fury? Silas didn't reply. He was already opening the appointment app on his handheld, searching for a vet station that didn't have squirrels in the ceiling. 3 days after the squirrel incident, Silas stood outside a different clinic, staring up at a sign that pulsed in soft green letters. Multi-species medical cooperative, terrestrial division, conditional. It was wedged between a noodle bar and a shop that sold gravity-resistant socks. The building itself was modest and lopsided, like it had been built with little planning and less enthusiasm. Murphy sat beside him, tail still, eyes locked on a delivery drone hovering overhead. The leash was shorter this time, much shorter. Silas leaned over. No heroics today. You see something fuzzy, you ignore it. Understood. Murphy blinked but didn't bark. That was good enough. Inside, the clinic lobby was a narrow room with an uneven floor and a ventilation unit that coughed every few seconds. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and something sweetly fungal. Behind a desk made of compressed kelp, a stocky, shell-backed alien tapped at a console with 3 fingers. Welcome, it said without glancing up. Species and purpose? Human. Dog. Follow up on a soft tissue injury. Left hind leg. The receptionist stopped tapping. A round black eye slid toward Murphy. Is it restrained? Leashed? Double-looped? I can sit on him if it helps. The receptionist made a noise like a vacuum line clearing. Room B. No sudden movements. They were led down a hallway by a floating orb with a blinking arrow on it. Murphy tried to sniff it. The orb dodged with impressive speed. Room B was smaller than the last place, with walls painted a calming shade of beige and a poster showing a smiling cetacean holding a toothbrush. A table sat at one end, slightly too high for Murphy to jump onto. Silas didn't bother trying. Instead, he sat on a low bench and scratched Murphy behind the ears. I swear, if this turns into another squirrel fiasco. The door swung open. The creature that entered was unlike any Silas had seen. Towering and thin, its skin shimmered like oil on water. Its head was elongated, with no visible eyes but a line of shifting light just above where eyebrows should be. It wore a sleeveless tunic and a tool belt glinting with unfamiliar instruments. "I am Teve. I will attempt the examination," it said, voice gurgling softly like water boiling in a sealed pot. "You will not interfere." "I won't. Just need to get his leg checked." Teve approached Murphy with slow, undulating steps. The dog watched with interest but didn't move. "I have reviewed your previous clinic's incident log," Teve said. "You were ejected." "Yeah, but I wasn't the one climbing through ceiling vents." Teve extended a flat, mirror-like panel toward Murphy's injured leg. A soft whirring sound began, and the panel glowed. Murphy shifted, uneasy. "Stay," Silas said. Murphy lowered his head and exhaled, ears twitching. Teve tilted the panel. A thin beam of light swept over the limb. Ligament fiber repair is proceeding naturally. Cellular regeneration is marginally elevated. No signs of infection. You've applied cold compresses, yes? Twice a day. Wrapped it too. He hates the wrap. Teve nodded or did something like it. Acceptable. Continue light activity only. No running. Silas raised an eyebrow. Ever tried telling a dog not to run? It's like explaining taxes to a toaster. I am unfamiliar with either concept. Lucky you. Teve slid the panel back into its belt. There is also a note here. Behavior regulation issues. Silas groaned. Look, I already explained. I do not require explanation. I am conducting a stress response test. What does that involve? Teve pressed a button on the wall. A small drawer opened. From it, Teve withdrew a cube that began to emit a faint, high-pitched chittering. Murphy's ears perked. His body tensed. That sounds a lot like... The cube replicates the auditory signature of common terrestrial vermin. We are monitoring neurological spikes. Murphy stood up. His tail went stiff. Silas grabbed the leash. You might want to power that down. He's getting that look. Teve did not respond immediately. The readings are within tolerable levels. Murphy took a step forward. Now would be good. Teve calmly tapped the cube. The sound stopped. Murphy whined and sat back down, but his eyes were still locked on the drawer. Silas exhaled. What's the point of that, anyway? To determine if the subject exhibits pathological fixations. It appears he does. He's not broken. He's a dog. They chase stuff. It's what they do. Teve straightened. We will note the condition as species-typical compulsive response. No further action needed. A buzzer sounded. Outside the room, raised voices echoed down the hallway. A scraping sound followed, then a loud crash. Silas stood. The door burst open. A short, barrel-shaped alien with 6 legs stumbled in, dragging a translucent crate behind it. Inside the crate was a squirming mass of fur and wriggling tails. Wrong delivery, it squealed. Wrong floor. Murphy stood, nostrils flaring. No. Sit, Murph. But Murphy lunged. The crate tipped over. The lid popped open. A dozen squealing rodent-like creatures scattered. One ran straight under the bench. Another launched itself off the wall and landed on Teve's shoulder. Chaos erupted. Murphy gave chase, barking like a war horn. The room became a whirlwind of fur, limbs, and overturned furniture. Teve tried to retreat but slipped on a rolling instrument tray. Silas dove for the leash, missed, and landed flat on his stomach. A technician burst in, saw the mayhem, and immediately reversed out again. Murphy cornered 3 of the creatures under the examination table. They hissed. He barked. One threw a cotton swab at him. Murphy, off. Off. Teve, now upright again, waved a handheld disc that emitted a shrill tone. The rodents froze. Murphy did not. Silas finally got hold of the leash and yanked. Hard. Murphy skidded back, whining but not resisting. The rodents were herded back into the crate by 2 staff members in padded suits. One of them tossed a small treat to Murphy. He caught it mid-air and sat down, tail thumping twice. Silas looked at Teve. I swear I didn't plan that. No further stress tests are recommended, Teve said slowly. Is he banned? Teve tilted its head. This facility's policy does not permit bans for species-typical responses. However, we strongly advise alternative appointment methods, such as remote diagnostics or sedation. Silas scratched the back of his neck. I'm not drugging my dog because you can't keep rodents in a box. We will file an incident report. Of course you will. They left through a side exit this time. Murphy trotted alongside, perfectly calm, tail swinging like a metronome. Outside, the noodle bar was setting up for lunch. Murphy paused to sniff a decorative plant. Silas let him. 2 visits. 2 rodent outbreaks. I'm starting to think it's a conspiracy. Murphy sneezed and looked up at him. No, I don't think they're doing it on purpose. But if the next place has a rodent exhibit, I'm walking straight back out. A group of alien tourists passed by, whispering and pointing at Murphy. One snapped a photo. Murphy wagged his tail and posed. Great, Silas muttered. He's developing a fanbase. In the sky above, a courier drone wobbled midair, dropping a small parcel that bounced once before landing in a recycling bin. Murphy didn't even blink. Silas glanced at him. You'll ignore drones but lose your mind over a glorified squirrel. Murphy yawned. They turned the corner, leaving the clinic behind. Silas wasn't sure where the next appointment would be. But one thing was certain: he was bringing his own crate next time. The portable diagnostic unit beeped 3 times and then fell silent. It had taken Silas 15 minutes just to figure out how to aim the thing at Murphy's leg without triggering its emergency language settings. One wrong angle and it had tried to sell him insurance in Varnathi. Okay, buddy, Silas muttered, ruffling Murphy's fur as the dog lay sprawled across the living room rug, belly exposed and eyes half-lidded. Looks like the ligament's healing up, no swelling. No limping today either. Murphy blinked once and rolled onto his side, unconcerned. The apartment above the row of shops had been a lucky find, mostly because the landlord hadn't asked about species or behavioral histories. It wasn't large, and the ceiling sizzled every time the neighbor's hover shower activated, but it had a view of the old canal and a window Murphy liked to nose at. Silas shut the diagnostic unit, tossed it into the drawer, and stood. Right. One more appointment and we're clear. No more clinics after this. No more stress tests, no more mystery rodents. Just one last sign-off. The problem was the sign-off required a certified cross-species behaviorist, and there weren't many of those who would take a case flagged by 2 separate facilities. Silas had called down every list in the local registry until he found one whose secretary had simply said, "We've seen worse." They arrived by tram the next morning. The facility was built into the hull of a retired transport vessel, now welded into the side of a cliff that overlooked the sprawling market plateau. A weathered sign above the entrance read, Behavioral Integration and Species Harmony Estate 4187. Sounds like a dating service for insects, Silas muttered. Murphy sniffed the air and wagged once. Inside, the walls curved like the inside of a ribcage, painted in soft gradients that shifted as they walked. The waiting area was quiet. A cluster of sentient gas clouds floated near a ventilation shaft, murmuring among themselves. A tall, insectoid creature with a translucent abdomen sat cross-legged, cradling something wrapped in thermal mesh. A voice called from the hallway. Silas O'Malley? He turned. A humanoid figure approached, though everything about her shimmered slightly, as if she existed in a layer just adjacent to reality. Her features were sharp, but not unkind. Her uniform was practical, reinforced at the seams, and had no insignia. Dr. Aneko, she said. I'll be conducting the behavioral assessment today. Murphy stood and gave her a polite sniff. She didn't flinch. Please follow me. They entered a chamber that resembled a cross between a meditation room and a gym. Padded walls, a few low obstacles, and a variety of scent emitters tucked into the corners. Silas unhooked the leash but didn't let go. He's calm. No signs of fixation for days. Dr. Eneko nodded. We'll start with a standard stimulus test. No artificial cues, no stress triggers. Just observation. Murphy wandered the room, sniffing deliberately. He approached a centimeter, sneezed, and walked away. Eneko watched silently. Her gaze flicked between Murphy's posture and the data scrolling on a tablet she carried. What kind of animals do you usually test? Silas asked. On this moon? Mostly aquatic carnivores and migratory pseudofauna. Terrestrials are rare. Dogs rarer. Murphy pawed at a padded cube, then circled it twice before lying down behind it. Good, she said. Now we'll try an interaction scenario. She tapped something on her tablet. A panel in the wall opened and a drone floated out. It trailed a long, artificial tail that emitted a faint squeal, high-pitched, erratic, not quite organic. Murphy's ears twitched. He stood. No, Silas muttered, stepping forward. Let him choose, Eneko said, not looking at him. Murphy took a step toward the drone, then halted. He tilted his head. The drone squealed again, spinning as it hovered. Murphy sat. Eneko raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Is that good? That's restraint. Not suppression, not fear. Choice. She tapped again. The drone retracted. Murphy let out a quiet huff, stood, and walked back to Silas. Okay, so, we're good. Almost. Final phase is exposure tolerance. Multiple stimuli. Controlled environment. The floor shifted slightly as panels retracted, revealing a shallow pit filled with artificial turf, textured mounds, and a few moving props, none of them rodent-shaped. A scent emitter activated, releasing a warm, earthy smell. Murphy sniffed, trotted forward, and began exploring. Eneko turned to Silas. This is your part. Walk with him. No commands. Just match his pace. Silas hesitated, then stepped into the pit. The ground was springy. Murphy looked back at him once, then continued forward. They walked side by side, weaving through the low obstacles. At one point, Murphy paused to sniff a foam mushroom that emitted a faint chirp. He sneezed, stepped over it, and moved on. They completed 2 full circuits. Eneko tapped her tablet again. The emitters shut down. Silas crouched beside Murphy, scratching under his collar. You did good, buddy. Eneko approached. He's passed. Silas stood. Just like that. No aggression, no fixation, no environmental conflict. He responded to stimulus and disengaged voluntarily. That's integration. Murphy wagged once. Eneko extended a small chip. Certification. It logs his ID, behavioral clearance, and environmental compatibility. You'll need it for interzone travel or residential renewals. Silas took it. Thanks. Really? No need. He's a good dog. Just needed space to make his own decisions. They left the facility as the sun dipped behind the ridge. Murphy trotted ahead, leash loose, tongue lolling. At the edge of the market, a stall had set out a row of plush toys shaped like local fauna. One of them had a tail that looked suspiciously bushy. Murphy approached, paused, sniffed it once, then turned away. Silas exhaled. Progress, he muttered. Back at the apartment, Murphy curled up in his usual spot by the window. Silas sat nearby, the certification chip on the table beside him. 3 clinics, 2 near bands, 1 shredded wall, he said. And all it took was someone who didn't treat you like a weapon. Murphy let out a soft woof in his sleep. Silas leaned back, finally letting the tension bleed out of his shoulders. No alarms, no shrieking staff, no containment fields, just a dog, and a little peace.